States here.
Well, I understand that, but I do want to, I know you've made at great length the idea you're not pressuring the administration to do anything. But for months, President Obama said if Assad used chemical weapons, it would be a game changer. Now he seems to be steering away from any talk of precipitous action. Let's see that then and now.
That's a red line for us, and that there would be enormous consequences if we start seeing movement on the chemical weapons front or the use of chemical weapons.
This is going to be a long-term proposition. This is not going to be something that is solved easily overnight.
I understand you're not calling for any action, but is your government troubled at all that red lines and enormous consequences have now become a, quote, long-term proposition?
But we have a different red line entirely. And our red line, Chris, is that if the Syrian regime tries to transfer chemical weapons or what we call game-changing weapons, could be anti-aircraft systems, to terrorists in Lebanon, particularly to Hezbollah in Lebanon, Israel will act. And we're very serious about that red line. We're sticking by that red line. And I think the people in Syria know that. The chemical weapons situation, again, is very, very complex. This is an American call. The United States and Israel are sovereign countries. We've got to make our own decisions, whether about Syria or about the Iranian nuclear program.
But here's the issue. It's not just Syria that's watching. It's Iran that's watching. President Obama has said that he would not allow Iran to develop a nuclear capability, which is an intelligence matter. I don't have to tell you is a much more difficult thing to assess than whether or not there's been a use of chemical weapons. If the president backs off, as he appears to be, from his red line and enormous consequences in Syria, what do you think is the lesson seen by the mullahs in Tehran?
Well, from Middle Eastern countries, but it's of a typically different magnitude of the Iranian nuclear threat, which threatens the existence of the state of Israel and threatens world stability. The Iranian mullahs, if they're looking at the Syrian situation, I don't know what they're seeing, but what definitely they have seen in little over a month is a visit by the U.S. Secretary of Defense, the U.S. Secretary of State, and the President of the United States to Israel. And they've all brought the same messages. The message is that the United States stands foursquare behind Israel's security. The United States supports Israel's right to defend itself by itself against any military threat.
Forgive me, a top defense official in Jerusalem just this week said Tehran, the Iranian leaders, are watching what's going on in Syria.
Well, I can't speak for any anonymous defensive position. I know what the Iranians have seen in Israel over the last month alone. And every American official, from the Secretary of Defense, Secretary of State, and the President of the United States, President Obama, has come to Israel and in Israel said that the United States will not allow Iran to acquire nuclear weapons.
He also said that there would be red lines if Syria used chemical weapons. Do you see no downside at all, no possible risk to the president backing off the red line in Syria in terms of Iran?
I think that this is an American decision. I think we are not recommending any policy other than one exception, and that is if the United States decides to arm Syrian rebels with lethal weaponry, not just defensive weaponry, to weapon-rich equipment, that those weapons and those rebels be very carefully vetted. We had a very bad with Libya, where shoulder-fired missiles went disappearing very quickly and showed up in our backyard. We don't want that to happen again in Syria.
All right. Let's talk about the military component. Let's talk about what Syria has. Intelligence estimates are